Amanda Clark walked into the classroom and felt like an ant among elephants. The ceiling stretched high above her head, built for creatures much larger than humans. Strange seats lined the room in curved rows, each one designed for a different type of alien body. Some looked like metal trees for creatures to wrap around. Others were flat platforms with glowing edges. A few resembled giant bowls filled with thick liquid. She clutched her datapad and looked for somewhere to sit. The other students were already there, and they were nothing like her. Near the front, 3 tall beings made of what looked like living crystal stood perfectly still. Their bodies caught the light and threw rainbow patterns on the walls. Amanda had read about them in her prep materials. Altarians. They shared. Thoughts like humans shared air, always connected to their hive mind. Behind them, a creature that looked like a giant snake with arms coiled around one of the tree-like seats. Its scales shifted from green to blue as it moved. That had to be a Vex. Amanda remembered reading that they could move faster than human eyes could follow when they wanted to. In the back corner, something that reminded Amanda of a praying mantis the size of a car clicked its claws together. The sound echoed through the room like typewriter keys. The Kithara were supposed to be brilliant at math and science, but they looked at other species like humans looked at insects. Amanda found an empty seat in the back row. It was clearly meant for humans, one of only 2 such seats in the entire room. As she sat down, she noticed the other human seat was empty. She was the only one of her kind here. The door at the front of the room opened with a sound like breaking glass. In walked Commander Thale, and Amanda's breath caught in her throat. She had seen pictures, but seeing a Drakmori in person was different. He stood 8 feet tall with skin like black metal. His eyes glowed red in deep sockets, and when he moved, she could hear the whisper of muscles like steel cables under his armored hide. "Advanced tactical operations," he said, and his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You are here because your species believes you have potential. Some of you do, most of you do not." His red eyes swept the room and stopped on Amanda for a moment longer than the others. She felt like a mouse being studied by a hawk. "Today we begin with the Battle of Kepler Station," Commander Thale continued. 100 years ago, a small defensive force held off an enemy fleet 20 times their size. Who can tell me how? They did it? One of the crystal Altarians spoke without moving its mouth. The words just appeared in the air, somehow translated into every language at once. "Superior positioning and coordinated defense patterns, sir." The defenders used the station's natural barriers to force the attackers into narrow approach vectors. "Correct but incomplete," Thale said. "Anyone else?" The giant mantis creature clicked rapidly. A voice came from a device on its chest. "Mathematical analysis shows the defenders maximize damage. Output through calculated firing solutions and resource conservation protocols." "Better, but still missing something important," Thale said. His glowing eyes found Amanda again. "Human, you have studied this battle?" Amanda felt 43 pairs of alien eyes turned toward her. Some glowed, some were black as space, others shifted through colors she had no names for. Her mouth went dry. "Yes, sir?" she managed to say. "And what did you learn?" Amanda took a breath. She had studied the battle, but not the way the others had. While they looked at numbers and positions, she had wondered about the people. "The defenders were scared," she said quietly. They knew they were going to die. But their commander didn't try to make them brave. She made them angry instead. She told them the enemy was coming to take their families, their homes, everything they loved. So they didn't fight like soldiers following orders. They fought like parents protecting their children. The room was quiet for a long moment. The Altarians turned toward each other, their crystal bodies ringing like bells as they communicated silently. The Kithara stopped clicking. Even the snake-like Vex had gone completely still. Commander Thale nodded slowly. "The human sees what you miss. Technical superiority means nothing if your heart is not in the fight. The defenders won because they had something to die for." Amanda felt a small surge of pride, but it died quickly when she heard whispers around the room. The words were in different languages, but her translation device picked them up. Primitive emotional analysis. Chemical-based thinking limitations. How did they even get in here? She sank lower in her seat and tried to focus on the lesson. Commander Thale began showing holographic recreations of famous battles. Ships moved through space like dancers, following patterns that had been studied for centuries. The alien students called out observations about fleet movements, weapons efficiency, and tactical formations. Amanda saw something different. She watched the battles like stories, trying to understand why commanders made certain choices. When Admiral Chun trapped the Rigel fleet in the asteroid field, it wasn't just smart positioning, it was because he knew the enemy commander was proud and would never retreat even when he should. When the Vegan Defense Force held the outer colonies, they didn't win through superior firepower. They won because they convinced the attackers that every small victory was costing too much, but when Amanda tried to share these thoughts, her classmates looked at her like she was speaking nonsense. During the break, she overheard a group of Altarians discussing her in their harmonic language. "The human thinks war is about feelings," one said, its voice like wind chimes. "Typical of a species that still experiences individual emotions," another replied. "They cannot see the pure mathematics of conflict." Amanda pretended to study her notes while her cheeks burned with embarrassment. She had worked so hard to get here. Earth had only been part of the Galactic Council for 50 years, and humans was still seen as the new kids who didn't really belong. The Kepler Military Institute was the best war college in known space. Getting accepted here was supposed to prove that humans could stand with the galaxy's greatest military minds. Instead, she felt more alone than ever. When class resumed, Commander Thale assigned them to groups for a simulation exercise. "You will plan the defense of a mining colony against pirate raids. Work together, learn from each other." Amanda waited to be assigned to a team, but one by one, the alien students formed groups without her. The Altarians naturally worked together, their hive mind making them perfect teammates. The Kithara grouped by mathematical specialization. The Vex chose partners based on complementary skills. Finally, Commander Thale pointed to a group of 5 aliens who seemed as left out as Amanda felt. "You 6 will work together," he said. Amanda joined the group and tried to introduce herself, but they had already started talking among themselves in rapid, overlapping languages. Her translation device struggled to keep up. When she suggested they start by analyzing the colony's weaknesses, they nodded politely and then continued their own discussion. The simulation began, and Amanda watched her teammates implement a standard defensive formation from their textbooks. It was solid, professional, and exactly what the pirates would expect. She tried to point out that the enemy would know these patterns too, but her suggestions were lost in the technical discussions about shield frequencies and weapon placement. When the simulation ended, their defense had failed completely. The pirates had broken through in exactly the way Amanda had predicted they would. "Better luck next time," one of her teammates said in heavily accented Galactic Standard. But Amanda could see in their faces that they blamed her for the failure. She was the weak link, the primitive human who couldn't keep up with real military thinking. As the class ended and students filed out, Amanda stayed in her seat. She looked at her notes, filled with observations about motivation and psychology that her classmates considered worthless. Maybe they were right. Maybe humans really didn't belong here among the galaxy's military elite, but deep down, Amanda couldn't shake the feeling that everyone else was missing something important. They saw war as a puzzle to be solved with the right formulas and formations. She saw it as a story about people making impossible choices under terrible pressure. She just didn't know how to prove that her way of thinking had value in a galaxy that measured everything by cold mathematics and superior technology. 3 months had passed since Amanda's first day at the Kepler Military Institute. She had found her routine among the alien students, even if she hadn't found acceptance. Every morning she sat in the back row of her classes, took careful notes, and tried to ignore the whispers about the human who didn't belong. Her grades were good, but not exceptional. Her alien classmates still saw her as a curiosity at best, a mistake at worst. When group projects were assigned, she was always the last one picked. When tactical discussions began, her ideas about psychology and motivation were politely dismissed in favor of hard mathematics, and proven strategies, but Amanda had learned to watch and listen. She noticed things her classmates missed because they were too focused on their own areas of expertise. The way Commander Thale's voice changed when he talked about certain battles. How the Altarians' crystal bodies dimmed slightly when they discussed defeats. The nervous clicking of Cathara claws when simulations didn't go as their calculations predicted on a cold morning that felt like any other. Commander Thale entered their Advanced Tactical Operations classroom with unusual energy. His red eyes seemed brighter than normal, and his metal-like skin gleamed under the lights. "Today marks the beginning of your final examination," he announced. "For the next 2 weeks, you will participate in the largest military exercise in Academy history. Every class, every year, every species will take part." Excited murmurs filled the room. The crystal Altarians hummed with harmonic frequencies. Several Vex uncoiled from their seats, their scales shifting to bright colors. Even the normally stoic Cathara increased their clicking to what Amanda had learned was their version of enthusiasm. "You will be assigned to real ships with skeleton crews," Commander Thale continued, "not simulators. Not holographic projections. Actual military vessels with full weapons and defensive systems. The scenarios will test everything you have learned about command, tactics, and leadership." Amanda felt her heart race. Real ships meant real responsibility. It also meant her classmates would have to work with her whether to or not. "The exercise will span 17 star systems," Thale said. "Academy instructors will command the enemy forces. Your job is to protect civilian colonies, defend supply lines, and coordinate with allied fleets. You will face pirates, territorial disputes, surprise attacks, and resource shortages. Some of you will succeed, many will not." He began reading assignments from a datapad. The best students got the newest ships with experienced crews. Amanda watched her classmates' names called for cruisers, destroyers, and battleships. Finally, near the end of the list, she heard her own name, Amanda Clark, Light Cruiser Meridian. A light cruiser was better than she had expected, but when she heard the names of her crew, she understood why. Kyle Murphy was the only other human at the Academy, a quiet engineering student who kept to himself. Zara was an Altarian who had been cast out from her hive for asking too many individual questions. Nyx was a Vex who had enrolled against his species. Pacifist nature and still struggled with the concept of necessary violence. The rest of her crew were equally problematic by Academy standards. A young Dracmori who was considered too thoughtful for his warrior race. A Cathara who preferred intuition over pure mathematics. Several others who didn't quite fit their species' expected roles. Amanda realized she had been given the ship of misfits, the crew nobody else wanted. Part of her felt insulted, but another part felt oddly hopeful. Maybe working with other outsiders would be different than trying to fit in with the mainstream alien students. 2 days later, Amanda stood on the bridge of the Meridian and tried not to show how nervous she felt. The ship was smaller than the ones her classmates commanded, but it was still a real military vessel with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Kyle stood at the engineering station, his fingers dancing over controls that monitored the ship's fusion reactors. Zara occupied the communications post, her crystal body reflecting the soft glow of dozens of displays. "All stations report ready," Nick said from the navigation console. His serpentine body was coiled around the chair, his scales a calm blue-green. That Amanda had learned meant he was focused. "Exercise begins in 10 minutes, Zara announced. Her voice was different from other Altarians Amanda had heard. Instead of the harmonic chorus of the hive mind, she spoke as an individual. Amanda looked at the tactical display showing their assigned patrol sector. It was far from the main action, a quiet region of space between two established trade routes. While her classmates would be fighting major battles and commanding large fleets, her crew would be watching empty space for pirates that probably wouldn't come. "Seems like they stuck us in the boring section," Kyle said from his station. His voice carried the slight accent of someone from Earth's outer colonies. "Perhaps that is for the best," Nyx replied. I am still not comfortable with the concept of inflicting harm, even in an exercise. Amanda studied the star charts and felt something nagging at the back of her mind. Their patrol route seemed random at first glance, but there was a pattern to it. The exercise planners had placed several ships in similar out-of-the-way positions, all of them crewed by students who didn't fit the typical academy mold. "Kyle, can you check the communication protocols for this exercise?" she asked. "Sure thing." His fingers moved across his console. Standard military encryption, multiple backup channels, regular check-in schedules. "Why? Something feels off about our assignment," Amanda said. She couldn't explain it, but years of watching people had taught her to trust her instincts about when something wasn't quite right. The exercise began with a burst of activity on the communication channels. Amanda listened to reports from across the 17 star systems as her classmates engaged in complex tactical scenarios. Fleet battles erupted around 3 different colonies. Pirates attacked supply convoys in the Outer Rim. A territorial dispute between 2 minor species threatened to escalate into full warfare. Meanwhile, the Meridian patrolled empty space. Hours passed with nothing but routine census sweeps and status reports. Amanda's crew seemed relieved to avoid the intense combat their classmates were experiencing, but she found herself studying the exercise parameters with growing unease. "Zara, are you receiving the standard hive updates from other Altarians in the exercise?" Amanda asked, the crystal being paused at her station. "I have not attempted to connect with the hive since arriving at the academy. It is complicated. For one such as myself, could you try? Just to see if the connection works normally?" Zara's body began to resonate with a low harmonic frequency. The sound built for several seconds, then cut off abruptly. "There's something wrong. I can sense other Altarians in the exercise, but the connection is fragmented, unclear. This should not be possible during a simple training scenario." Before Amanda could respond, alarms began wailing throughout the ship. Red lights flashed on every console as Kyle shouted from his station. "We're taking fire. Real fire. These aren't simulation blasts." The Meridian shook as energy beams struck their shields. Amanda grabbed her command chair as the lights flickered and sparks flew from damaged circuits. "Nix evasive maneuvers," she ordered. "Zara, try to contact Academy Command." "I cannot reach command," Zara reported, her voice tight with stress. "Something is jamming our long-range communications." Through the main view screen, Amanda saw sleek black ships emerging from behind a nearby asteroid field. They moved with deadly precision, their hulls unmarked by any national insignia she recognized. "Those aren't Academy ships," Kyle said as he worked frantically to reroute power around damaged systems. "The hull designs are wrong and they're using weapons that aren't in our databases." Amanda's mind raced as pieces fell into place. The isolated patrol assignments, the communication problems, the attacks that were supposed to be simulated but were causing real damage. This wasn't part of the exercise. "It's a real attack," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos on the bridge. "Someone is using the exercise as cover to strike at the academy." Another blast shook the ship, and Amanda realized that she and her misfit crew were no longer students in a training exercise. They were soldiers in a real war, facing an enemy that had planned this assault while the galaxy's military leaders were distracted by what they thought was just another Academy training event. The question was whether a human, who had never commanded anything more dangerous than a study group, could keep her crew alive long enough to warn the rest of the galaxy about what was really happening. The Meridian shuddered under another blast as Amanda gripped her command chair. Sparks flew from damaged consoles while her crew worked desperately to keep the ship operational. Through the view screen, she could see more enemy vessels emerging from hidden positions throughout the asteroid field. "Shields down to 60%, Kyle reported from his engineering station. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he rerouted power through damaged circuits. "I can give you maybe 10 more minutes of this kind of punishment before we start losing primary systems." Amanda's mind raced. Her classmates were scattered across 17 star systems, all thinking they were still in a training exercise. The Real enemy had planned this perfectly, using the Academy's own war games as cover for a massive coordinated attack. "Nix, take us behind that large asteroid," she ordered. "We need cover while I figure out what's happening." The Serpentine Vex's scales shifted to deep purple as he concentrated on the navigation controls, adjusting course. The asteroid should provide adequate shelter from direct fire. As the Meridian moved to safety, Amanda opened her personal communication device and began scanning through emergency frequencies. What she heard made her blood run cold. "Academy Central, this is Battleship Goliath. We are under attack by unknown forces. Repeat, this is not an exercise. Training ship Nebula to any Academy vessel. Our instructors are dead. Enemy forces have real weapons. Request immediate assistance. This is Commander Thale aboard Destroyer Titan, all Academy ships. The exercise is compromised. Enemy forces are using live ammunition. All students are ordered to retreat to Rally Point 7. Amanda realized that the attack wasn't limited to her sector. The enemy had struck simultaneously across multiple star systems, catching the entire Academy fleet off guard, but retreat wasn't an option. The rally point Commander Thale mentioned was 3 hours away at maximum speed, and most of the student ships wouldn't survive that long against coordinated enemy forces. "Zara, can you establish contact with other Academy ships in our immediate area?" Amanda asked. The Altarian's crystal body hummed as she worked her communications console. "I am detecting 7 Academy vessels within 2 hours travel time. Most are requesting assistance or reporting heavy damage." Amanda stared at the tactical display, watching red enemy contacts moving with deadly precision throughout the local star system. Her training told her to follow orders, retreat to the rally point, and let senior officers handle the situation. But her instincts told her something different. "Kyle, what's the status of those 7 ships Zara detected?" "Let me see," Kyle said, pulling up detailed sensor readings. 3 light cruisers like ours, 2 destroyers, 1 heavy cruiser, and a supply vessel. Most of them have skeleton crews of Academy students. A few have instructors aboard, but they're either wounded or dead based on the damage reports. Amanda made a decision that surprised even herself. "Zara, open a channel 2. All 7 ships." "Channel open," Zara replied, though her tone suggested she wasn't sure what Amanda planned to do. "Attention all Academy vessels, this is Amanda Clark aboard the light cruiser Meridian. I know most of you don't know me, but right now that doesn't matter. The enemy has us scattered and confused, which is exactly what they want. If we try to run to the rally point separately, they'll pick us off one by one." Static filled the channel for a moment before responses began coming in. "This is Cadet Rex aboard the destroyer Stormwind. Who put a human in command of anything?" "Heavy. Cruiser Dawnbreaker here. Our captain is dead and our first officer is unconscious. We're taking orders from a Kithara engineering student right now. Supply vessel Harvest requesting instructions. We have wounded aboard and limited defensive capabilities." Amanda took a deep breath. This was her chance to prove that humans brought something valuable to galactic military thinking, but she had to do it while under enemy fire with crews who barely knew her name. "Listen to me carefully," she said. "The enemy planned this attack during our exercise because they knew we'd be spread out and unprepared. They're using standard pack hunting tactics, surrounding isolated ships and overwhelming them with concentrated fire. But they've made one mistake." "What mistake?" asked the voice from Stormwind. "They planned this attack based on how our different species normally fight. Drakmori charge head-on. Altarians coordinate through their hive mind. Vex use speed and stealth. Kithara rely on mathematical precision, but we're not normal crews. We're Academy students, which means we've been learning about each other's tactics for months." Amanda called up a tactical display that showed the positions of all friendly and enemy forces in the local area. "Here's what we're going to do. The enemy has divided their forces into 3 attack groups, each one designed to counter specific species fighting styles. But what if we don't fight like our species normally do?" She began outlining a plan that would have seemed impossible to traditional military commanders. The fast Vex-crewed ships wouldn't use hit-and-run tactics. Instead, they would serve as mobile shield generators, using their speed to position themselves between enemy fire and the more vulnerable vessels. The heavy cruiser with its mixed crew would become a mobile command center, coordinating attacks. Rather than serving as a front-line battleship, the destroyers would work in pairs, using Altarian coordination techniques even though their crews were mostly non-Altarian. "This is insane," came the voice from Stormwind. "You want us to fight against every tactical doctrine we've ever learned." "Exactly," Amanda replied. "The enemy studied our species' normal tactics. They haven't studied what happens when we combine them in ways no one expects." For a moment, the communication channel was silent. Amanda could almost feel the doubt and uncertainty from the other ships. She was asking experienced warriors to trust the tactical judgment of a human student, who had never commanded anything larger than a study group. Then a new voice cut through the static. "This is Cadet Vorn aboard the heavy cruiser Dawnbreaker." Amanda recognized the name. He was one of the Drakmori students from her tactical operations class. "The humans' plan is unconventional, but our conventional approaches are getting US killed. I say we try it." One by one, the other ships agreed to coordinate under Amanda's command. She felt a mixture of excitement and terror as she realized what she had just taken on. 8 ships with mixed crews of academy students facing a professional military force that had planned this attack for months or maybe years. "All ships begin moving to designated positions," Amanda ordered. "Remember, the enemy expects us to act like typical representatives of our species. Let's show them what happens when different species really work together." The plan began to unfold across the star system. The supply vessel Harvest, which should have been the most vulnerable target, became the center of their formation. Its large cargo bays were converted into mobile repair facilities, allowing damaged ships to dock quickly for emergency repairs. While still remaining mobile, the Vex-crewed ships used their incredible speed not for attacks, but to create overlapping shield patterns that protected the entire formation. When enemy fire concentrated on one vessel, a Vex ship would flash into position, absorbing the damage with fresh shields while the original target recovered. Amanda watched from the Meridian's bridge as her improvised fleet began to work like a single organism. Different species who had barely spoken to each other at the academy were now coordinating complex maneuvers based on real-time tactical adjustments. "It's working," Kyle said with amazement in his voice. "The enemy formations are breaking up. They don't know how to respond to tactics they've never seen before." "Enemy forces are retreating from Grid 7, Zara reported. "Their attack patterns suggest confusion and inability to predict our next moves." Amanda allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, but she knew this was just the beginning. They had won one engagement, but the enemy had forces scattered throughout multiple star systems. If they wanted to save the academy and protect their fellow students, they would need to do more than just survive. They would need to take the fight to an enemy that had spent years planning for every possible response except the one thing no one could have predicted: a group of misfit students led by a human who saw warfare not as a mathematical equation, but as a story about people making impossible choices under impossible pressure. Amanda stood on the bridge of the Meridian, watching tactical displays that showed the larger picture of the battle across multiple star systems. Her small fleet of 8 Academy ships had won their local engagement, but the war was far from over. Reports kept coming in from other sectors, and most of them were not good. "Academy Fleet 7 has been destroyed," Zara reported from her communications station. "No survivors detected. Training Squadron 12 is requesting immediate evacuation," Nix added from navigation. "They have lost all combat capability." Kyle looked up from his engineering console with a grim expression. "Amanda, I'm picking up enemy communication intercepts. They're talking about us." "Put it on speakers," Amanda said. The bridge filled with translated voices speaking in harsh, clipped tones. "Unknown tactical variants detected in Sector 5. Academy forces utilizing unpredictable coordination patterns. Standard response protocols ineffective. Analysis of enemy behavior suggests new command structure." Fighting patterns do not match. Species profiles in our databases, or recommend immediate tactical reassessment. Current Academy resistance exceeds projected parameters by a significant margin. Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. The enemy had been planning this attack based on detailed studies of how different species fought. They had responses prepared for Drakmori Battle Fury, Altarian Hive Tactics, Vex Speed Attacks, and Cathara Mathematical Precision. But they had no data on humans because her species was too new to galactic warfare. "They don't know what to do with us," she said quietly. "What do you mean?" Kyle asked. Amanda turned to face her crew. "Think about it. They've been studying galactic military tactics for years, maybe decades. They know exactly how every species fights, what their strengths and weaknesses are, how they respond under pressure. But humans have only been in space for 50 years. We're not in their tactical databases." Zara's crystal body hummed with thought. "You believe our unpredictability is an advantage?" "More than that," Amanda said, her mind racing with possibilities. "I think it's the key to winning this whole war." She pulled up a galaxy-wide tactical display showing all the reported battles. The enemy forces were winning almost everywhere they followed traditional tactics, but they were struggling in the few places where mixed crews or unusual strategies were being used. "Kyle, can you patch me through to every surviving Academy ship?" "In the exercise area? That's a lot of ships, Amanda. Maybe 200 vessels spread across 17 star systems." "Do it. And make sure the signal is strong enough that the enemy can hear it too." Kyle's fingers flew over his console. "Channel open. You're broadcasting to everyone within 50 light years." Amanda took a deep breath. What she was about to do would either save the Academy or get everyone killed, but she had to trust her instincts about human nature and how it could change everything. "Attention all Academy forces, this is Cadet Amanda Clark. I know most of you don't know who I am, and I know many of you think humans don't belong in this war. But right now, I need you to listen carefully because your lives depend on it." Static filled the channel, then responses began pouring in from across the star systems. "This is Captain Vex aboard the battleship Thunder. Who authorized a cadet to use fleet frequencies? Heavy cruiser battalion here. We're taking heavy casualties and need real commanders, not Academy students. Destroyer Swift reporting. Our situation is desperate. We'll listen to anyone with a plan." Amanda ignored the criticism and pressed on. "The enemy has been planning this attack for years. They know exactly how each of your species fights. They have counter-tactics prepared for every standard military doctrine in the galaxy. That's why they're winning." She paused, letting that sink in before continuing. "But they don't know how humans fight, because we're too new. And more importantly, they don't know what happens when humans help other species fight differently than they ever have before." "Get to the point, human," came a growling voice that sounded like a Drakmori commander. "The point is that we stop fighting like separate species and start fighting like one united force. Not just cooperating, actually combining our abilities in ways the enemy has never seen." Amanda began outlining tactics that would have been impossible under normal military doctrine. Altarian hive minds would coordinate with individual Vex decision-making. Drakmori warriors would follow strategies developed by lesser species. Cathara mathematical precision would be combined with human intuition and pattern recognition. "This is ridiculous," came a voice from one of the battleships. "You want us to abandon proven tactics for the ideas of a species that barely knows how to build starships." But other voices were starting to support Amanda's plan. These were mostly from ships with mixed crews or vessels that had been getting badly beaten using traditional approaches. "The human's right," said a Cathara captain. "I've been fighting by the mathematics for 2 hours and lost half my fleet. Maybe it's time to try something that doesn't compute." "My hive connection has been disrupted since the attack began," added an Altarian commander. "Working with individual minds might actually be an advantage right now." Slowly, ship by ship, Amanda began coordinating a galaxy-wide change in tactics. She assigned roles based not on species stereotypes, but on what each crew actually needed to survive their current situation. Fast ships became mobile. shield generators and repair platforms. Instead of attackers, heavy vessels served as coordination hubs rather than frontline fighters. Support ships were converted into mobile bases that could keep entire fleets operational while moving. Most importantly, Amanda taught the alien commanders to think like humans, to see patterns in enemy behavior, to understand that warfare was about psychology as much as firepower, and to adapt constantly instead of following rigid doctrines. All ships began implementing new tactical frameworks, Amanda broadcast. Remember, the enemy expects you to fight like your species always has. Show them what happens when you fight like something they've never encountered before. The change wasn't immediate, but within an hour, reports began coming in from across the war zone that painted a very different picture. Sector 3 reporting. Successful counterattack. Enemy forces retreating in confusion. Battle Group 7 has broken enemy siege of Colony Station. They couldn't adapt to our modified tactics. This is incredible, Kyle said, monitoring communication channels. The tide is turning in almost every engagement. But Amanda knew they had done more than just win some battles. As she listened to the enemy communication intercepts, she could hear panic creeping into their voices. Unknown variables continue to multiply. Academy forces demonstrating tactical capabilities not present in any species profile. Recommend immediate withdrawal to reassess combat parameters. Current engagement protocols insufficient against modified enemy behavior. Analysis indicates presence of unknown tactical influence. Possibly new species involvement or revolutionary command methodology, Amanda smiled grimly. The enemy was right about the unknown tactical influence, but they would never figure out what it really was. It wasn't superior technology or ancient military wisdom. It was something much simpler and much more powerful. It was the human ability to see connections between different ideas, to adapt quickly to changing situations, and most importantly, to help other people work together in ways they had never imagined possible. Zara, are you receiving any updates from other Altarian crews? Amanda asked. Yes, and they report something remarkable. Working with individual minds from other species is teaching them new ways to think. They say the experience is enlightening. Nix, how are the Vex crews adapting to the new tactics? Many report that slowing down to coordinate with others has improved their precision. They are discovering that speed without direction is less effective than controlled movement with purpose. Amanda realized that they weren't just winning a war. They were proving something much more important. The galaxy's different species weren't just stronger when they worked together, they were actually becoming better versions of themselves when they learned from each other, and at the center of it all was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the ability to see potential where others saw only limitations, and to build bridges between different ways of thinking that created possibilities no one species could achieve alone. The battle for the Kepler Academy was finally over. Amanda stood on the bridge of the Meridian, looking out at the debris field that had once been the enemy fleet. Floating among the wreckage were dozens of Academy ships, many damaged but still intact. The cost had been high, but they had won. Final casualty reports coming in, Zara announced from her communications station. Her crystal body had developed new harmonic patterns over the past few hours, something Amanda had never seen in an Altarian before. 43 Academy vessels destroyed, 112 damaged but operational. Enemy fleet completely neutralized. Kyle wiped sweat from his forehead as he monitored the engineering systems. I still can't believe we pulled that off. When this started, I thought we were all going to die. Many of us did die, Nick said quietly from his navigation post. The Vex's scales had remained a deep, thoughtful blue since the fighting ended. But perhaps their sacrifice taught us something important about what we can accomplish together. Amanda nodded, but her mind was already moving beyond the immediate victory. Through the communication channels, she could hear the voices of alien commanders who had never spoken to humans before today. They were asking questions about human tactical thinking, wanting to understand how her species approached problems so differently. Amanda, Zara said, I am receiving a priority communication from Academy Command. Commander Thale wishes to speak with you directly. Put him through. The main view screen flickered to life, showing Commander Thale on the bridge of his heavily damaged destroyer. The proud Drakmori warrior looked exhausted, his metal-like skin scorched and dented from battle. But his red eyes held something Amanda had never seen there before: respect. "Cadet Clark," he said, his voice carrying across space with its familiar rumble. "I have just finished reviewing the tactical logs from this engagement. What you accomplished today should have been impossible." "We all accomplished it together, sir," Amanda replied. "I just helped coordinate what everyone was already capable of doing." Thale's expression shifted, and what Amanda had learned was the Drakmori equivalent of a smile. "Do not diminish your achievement with false modesty. You took command of forces scattered across 17 star systems and united them using tactics that no military academy in the galaxy teaches. More importantly, you showed us what our different species can become when we truly work as one." The communication channel expanded to include other senior officers from across the fleet. Amanda recognized some of them from academy ceremonies, legendary commanders from various species who had decades of experience in real warfare. "The human is correct about coordination," said Admiral Keth, an Altarian whose crystal body was larger and more complex than any Amanda had seen. "But she understates her own contribution. Altarian tactical analysis indicates that human cognitive patterns provide unique advantages in multi-species command scenarios." "Agreed," added General Vrak, a massive Drakamori whose scarred hide spoke of countless battles. Human tactical thinking emphasizes adaptation and psychological insight over rigid doctrine. This approach proves highly effective when commanding diverse forces. Amanda felt overwhelmed by the praise, but also troubled by something she sensed in the communications from around the fleet. "With respect, sir, I think you're missing the real point," she said carefully. The channel went quiet. Several alien commanders exchanged glances on their view screens. Amanda realized she had just contradicted some of the most respected military leaders in the galaxy, but she pressed on. "Everyone is talking about what humans brought to this battle, but that's not what won the war. What won was that everyone was willing to learn from everyone else. The Altarians learned to value individual thinking. The Vex learned to coordinate with slower species. The Drakmori learned to follow strategies they didn't develop themselves." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "Humans didn't save the Academy today. All of us working together in ways we never had before. That's what saved the Academy." Commander Thale studied her for a long moment. "Explain." "Before today, each species fought using their own natural advantages. That made sense when we were fighting separately, but it also made us predictable. The enemy could study our tactics and develop counters because we always fought the same way." Amanda called up tactical displays showing the battle patterns from throughout the engagement. "But when we started combining our approaches, when Altarians used individual decision-making, when Vex prioritized coordination over speed, when everyone started thinking outside their species' normal patterns, we became something the enemy had never seen before." "A hybrid tactical doctrine," Admiral Keth said, her harmonic voice carrying notes of fascination. "Multiple species, operating not as separate units but as components of a new type of military organization." "Exactly," Amanda said. "And the best part is that nobody lost what made them special. The Altarians are still incredibly good at coordination. They're just better at it now because they understand individual thinking too. The Vex are still fast and precise, but now they can use those abilities in ways that help other species instead of just themselves." General Vrak's growling voice cut through the channel. "You are saying that diversity of thought makes us stronger than uniformity of doctrine." "I'm saying that understanding each other makes us stronger than just tolerating each other," Amanda replied. The communication channel buzzed with rapid conversations in multiple languages as the senior officers discussed what they had heard. Amanda waited, suddenly aware that this conversation might be more important than the battle they had just fought. Finally, Commander Thale spoke again. "Cadet Clark, I am hereby recommending you for the Academy Medal of Strategic Excellence. But more importantly, I am proposing that the entire Academy curriculum be restructured based on what we learned today. Sir, multi-species tactical integration will become a core requirement for all students. Every cadet will train with crews from different species, learning not just their own military traditions, but how to combine them with others. What you demonstrated today will become the foundation for a new approach to galactic defense. Amanda felt a strange mixture of pride and responsibility. That sounds like a big change, sir. The galaxy is changing whether we want it to or not, Theo replied. Today proved that our old ways of thinking about military cooperation are insufficient. We need leaders who can see beyond the boundaries of their own species, who can find strength and diversity rather than viewing it as a complication. Over the next few hours, as rescue ships arrived and the damaged Academy vessels began limping back to base, Amanda found herself surrounded by alien classmates who had barely spoken to her before the battle. They asked questions about human thinking, about how her species approached complex problems, about what it was like to see patterns that others missed, but the conversations weren't one-sided. Amanda learned things about her alien classmates that surprised her. Zara explained how breaking away from the hive mind had taught her to appreciate individual creativity. Nix described how working with other species had helped him find ways to be peaceful while still protecting those who needed protection. Young Kithara named Click approached her near the end of the day. His translator rendered his rapid clicking into careful words. Human Amanda, I have calculated the probability matrices for today's victory using standard tactical variables. The mathematics indicate our success should have been impossible. Maybe some things can't be calculated, Amanda suggested. Yes, Click said, his claws moving in what Amanda had learned was thoughtful tapping. I am beginning to understand that the most important variables are often the ones that cannot be measured. Courage, trust, the willingness to try something that has never been attempted before. As Amanda walked through the corridors of the Academy that evening, she reflected on how much had changed since her first day as the human who didn't belong. The whispers about primitive thinking and chemical-based cognition had been replaced by genuine interest in human perspectives on leadership and problem-solving, but more importantly, she saw aliens from different species talking to each other in ways they never had before. Altarians were having individual conversations with Vex. Drakmori were asking Kithara to explain their mathematical approaches. Students who had spent months seeing each other as foreign were discovering that different didn't mean inferior. The memorial service for those lost in the battle was held 3 days later in the Academy's Great Hall. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to honor the fallen and to acknowledge what their sacrifice had taught the survivors. When Amanda was asked to speak, she stood before the assembled crowd and chose her words carefully. We came to this academy is separate species learning to coexist, she said. But the friends we lost died fighting as something new, as galactic citizens who valued each other not despite their differences, but because of them. She looked out at the faces in the crowd, seeing species she was still learning about, cultures she was only beginning to understand. The greatest honor we can give to those who died is to continue becoming what they helped us start, not just allies who fight together, but friends who make each other stronger by sharing what makes each of us unique.